Oh, hello everyone, and welcome to the third in our series of Encore webinars. These webinars are sponsored by the Schlegel UW Research Institute for Aging and Conrad Grebel University College in Waterloo, Ontario, Canada, and by the Centre for Aging and Pastoral Studies in Canberra, Australia. My name is Jane Kipfer, and I'm here in Waterloo, and my co-host is Sally Mordyke in Australia. These webinars have their origins in the 10th International Conference on Aging and Spirituality that was held last June here in Waterloo. After the conference, we heard the desire to repeat some of the presentations so more people could benefit and join in our conversation. So, this is our attempt to share the conference further. We're glad you could join us tonight. Yes, we are recording, and you'll be sent a link to access the video as well as the slides and a synopsis of the chat afterwards. Today we have Beate Steller here with us from Australia, bringing us her workshop, Meditation for Older People, Guiding Mindfulness Meditation Groups in Aged Care. Beate is a spiritual care practitioner, adult educator, published author, accredited mental health social worker, counselor, and clinical supervisor based in Sydney, Australia. She's gathered experience in these roles over 40 years in a variety of sectors and industries, including health, palliative and aged care, social housing, and long term unemployment. She has a special interest in working with older people and has been working in residential aged care for over the last 14 years in the roles of social worker and spiritual well being coordinator. For over a decade, Beate specialized in grief and loss education and counseling and transition counseling, and was the director of the board of NALAG, which is the National Association for Loss and Grief, between 2009 and 2020. She had her first book published in 2017 called Tech Connect, Staying Meaningfully Connected in Aged Care. She completed her second master's degree in aging and pastoral studies in 2019. Her master's research was on mindfulness meditation groups in residential aged care, and it was published in 2022 as Mindfulness Meditation in Residential Aged Care: What Frail Older People Identified as Beneficial for Their Spiritual Care and Well-Being. This was in the Journal of Religion, Spirituality, and Aging. Beate's latest publication is her 2023 book, Meditation for Older People, a how-to guide for mindfulness meditation groups. Beate has a history of working with people from Indigenous and culturally diverse backgrounds. And there is so much we can learn from Beate. So we're thrilled that you are here with us today, Beate. Thank you in advance for bringing us this webinar that you originally led as a half-day seminar at the conference. So I'll soon turn the floor over to you. First, just to remind everyone to please keep your microphone muted while you're listening, and we'll save some time for questions and conversation at the end. So, Beate, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Jane, and welcome everyone. It's a great joy to see you all as fellow travellers. And it's been lovely to be able to revisit, that wonderful experience we had in Canada last May. And, a year ago, we were sort of getting ourselves ready for this, the whole conference and everything else. So thank you. And look, it's a great privilege to share with you I suppose the wisdom that I've learned from the elders that I've been working with in aged care about really a contemplative way of providing support and care. So I'm going to share my screen and show some slides which you'll get a copy of. We will have opportunities where you can put things in the chat, and certainly I'd like it to be as engaging as possible, but within the numbers, we will do the best we can. So thank you. Thank you for all that you do and your work all around the world, which is very encouraging. And also, I just wanted to say that I'm here in the south of Sydney near the Royal National Park on Darawal country, which is the name for the Indigenous area that I'm, as a migrant, have been living here for many years. And place is very important. Connection to land is important, and that's one of the in the group program that I developed. We talk very much about coming home to yourself, but also place and I have a group one session is particularly about our Indigenous people in Australia and what we learn from them in terms of contemplative practice, which I'll give you a little bit of a taste. So my hope for you in this little session is that you'll be inspired to, whether it's for yourself to incorporate the contemplative practice more, this mindfulness practice, but also that you might bring that more into your work with the elders that you work with. In Australia, certainly, it's very much about active aging. The more activities we have to constantly demonstrate here that we're doing everything we can to get people actively engaged, which is all very well and good, but there's nothing really in the programs about helping and supporting our elders to actually be still, to be calm, to find spaces of places in themselves of calm and rest. Last couple of days ago when I was at work, the focus in our meditation group, which at the Nagel, where I work at part of Southern Cross Care. I've been running the group for about over 7-8 years now. The focus was on stillness, and I asked them, what is meditation to you? And one lady said, it's about becoming still, just calming yourself and stilling yourself. So that whole thing, be still and know that I'm God, was very much the theme. Now, the other thing I just wanted to say to you is that the book is totally a non-for-profit project. I'm really basically doing it because I promised the residents that I would put it in a book, and their words and their message will be passed on to others, and that's what I really felt committed to do. So just so you know, and I want to really thank the elders, particularly who are part of the research. Sadly, most of them have died since the book has been written, but certainly, and also on the front cover here, these are Shirley's hands. Shirley, one of our residents, and with the geraniums that my mother had illegally brought to Australia, cutting from her. So which has been very nice to know that my mother, who died over 17 years ago, is part of the book. So thank you for all that you do. Just very quickly, I'm just going to give you a little taste, a little bit about the part of background research. I'm going to play you one of the short part of the interview from one of the elders. I'm going to take you through the elements of the 6 weeks program. Experience a little bit of the program yourself as we in this session. Just walk you through the book and become familiar also with some of the challenges and issues when you're facilitating a group with frail aged, which is very different. Certainly as a social worker, I've run many groups for all sorts of groups and people throughout my lifetime, and it's very, very different with people who are frail, where the physicality of just even getting to the group can take more time than the group itself and more energy. So it's all those challenges. So look, just to be clear in terms of spirituality, the definition I'm using is from Meaningful Aging Australia. That's our peak body for spiritual care in Australia. And from their national guidelines for spiritual care, as I said, spirituality is integral but not confined by religion and faith. It's about what gives us purpose to our lives. It's about our sources of meaning and hope, which in turn is intimately related to our connectedness to ourselves, to others, and to the world. So to ourselves, to others, and the world. When part of the aging process towards, especially the later stages in life, it's all about this disconnection from your home, the people around you, and how to connect to ourselves becomes critical very much at that stage. So just in terms of my own backstory, in 2015, when I was doing my master's in aging pastoral study, I had to think of a project and develop this. I thought, well, I might as well do research on something that I'm doing. And I really was curious about, is this meditation group helping at all? So the aim of the research was to, just have to click this here, sorry, is to basically evaluate the effectiveness and benefits of this meditation group that I'd started, and whether it actually does enhance spiritual growth and well-being for older people in residential care. And we had 13 people attending the group for a 6 program, and I basically interviewed them before I started this program that I developed and after. And some people had never done meditation before, some had been already to the meditation group, so it was a bit of a mixed group. So this is how I had advertised it. So the essence was to inquire about spiritual growth. Okay. And the group, I sort of broke it down into 6 elements. First was there was an input and reflection time, where there was a poem, a reading, a story. Then there was a period of silent meditation, a structured group prayer. Then there was time for sharing. And also then was an element of practicing gratitude with a mindful hand massage, where I would go around and give them, put a little bit of cream on their hands while they were focusing on massaging their hands and thinking about all the wonderful gifts their hands have been able to provide in their life, but also to say out loud one thing they're grateful for. So that was sort of the elements. So in terms of, I broke down in the research. And so these were some of the questions I used before and after. I repeated, most of them were the same, just in terms of to see the difference, but in terms of which part of the 6 groups do you look most forward to? I thought that was before I started the research, what they thought they were going to look forward to. And just to give you an example in the research, and by the way, just looking at that, you'd be thinking, what do you think these residents how would they answer these questions, and how would you personally answer the question? Even things like, how often are you, important is mindfulness for your overall well-being, and things like that. So it's their interviews plus questionnaires, the same question interview. So I've got it on different levels, the information I've got back from the residents, and it's very, very interesting. But
there.
You can see.
Oh, that's all probably the other time too.
To turn someone off here. So for example, this was one of the questions: which part of the group do you think you look most forward to? And here you can see the blue is before and the orange after. So they thought initially they would look most forward to the meditation, but after actually did the group, that actually wasn't as important, but the time of sharing became most important. And the practicing mindful hand massage, none of them thought that was going to be something of significance, whereas in fact in the end, afterwards, they actually thought that was something they really loved. And I think it wasn't just the hand massage, it was particularly the combined with the gratitude activity, when they actually had to say out aloud what it was. And that was really in terms of building also a sense of community within the little group that attended to this meditation group. So overall, once we finished the research, these themes emerged, 4 themes, and ask yourself in your own work, how does that sound with your own work? Is that something you would say, yes, that's very important? They thought that meaningfully connecting and sharing, providing a supportive and reflective space, and practicing mindfulness meditation, and practicing and expressing gratitude, all are important for spiritual growth and well-being. Okay, so there were some of the themes that emerged. So then, of course, well, not of course, I wasn't going to publish it all, but I realized if I don't actually write it up and publish it, the work won't actually, and really particularly the stories and what the residents had said won't actually be heard around the world. And once it was published, it really took off in many ways. And can I say, what really struck me was during the when I was interviewing, doing the interviews, there was one resident, and you'll hear her in a minute. She actually has a PhD. She's a religious sister. She has died a few years ago already now, but she had a Churchill scholarship, a very, very intellectual, strong feminist, very strong woman. And when beautiful woman, when I said to her, look, Vianney, if I can get this published, which would be fantastic. So whatever you say, just remember these words are really, people around the world could hear it. So everybody were told this, they would sit up in the bed or in the chair and right, they felt they had a voice and they needed to actually make sure that what they had to say was going to be heard, and so that really motivated me. And what really struck me was that actually we don't have a lot of research coming out from within an aged care facility. It's about, or what people think, but actually from residents, and certainly getting it through the ethics committee was a very difficult thing, and but we need to get that more, to get actually information out, so that's my great encouragement to all. So in terms of what's meaning, sorry, just something happened here to my thing. Sorry. One of the questions was about being meaningfully connecting. After the input and reflection section, residents on the whole rated the time for sharing, as I said, that not as very important, but afterwards they did. And I just wanted to say here, one of the residents, Dot, she said, she was 95. She said, being in a facility with a program is interesting in itself, and that we have an activity officer. But I need the spiritual stimulation. I love to participate with others, and it's an encouragement for me personally to express myself. I believe I'm a spiritual being and apart from being a physical being, so I need to keep that in mind and cherish it and stimulate it with others. So this is from a 95-year-old person saying that, a woman who was an extraordinary woman who her background was from a Quaker tradition, and so she also knew the importance of silence. Very, very inspirational person, and so and very articulate, able to express her spiritual needs. So now I'm going to play you a little a little bit of the interview with one of the residents who, when I asked them a little bit about her, what in terms of mindfulness and her practice. So this is so gee, I hope it works. So and before I play it, I want you, as you listen to it, to hear what's the essence of what she's saying, and you're welcome to put that in the chat. Anything that stands out to you. So hope you can hear it all right.
Vianney,
Somebody's ringing you.
No. I'm recording now.
Oh.
I'm recording it because you were answering this question about, which is about number 6. How do you see the role of having a quiet and reflective space in aged care? You said very important. Tell you a little bit more about that.
For the experience that I've had in preparing people for ageing, the most important aspect of it, I feel, is helping people to be aware of their own inner resources and to have confidence to draw on them. I see people coming in here, come from another area, and they're walking around with sad faces for months before they settle down because they've never learnt to be on their own. So I think it's extremely important.
Look, that's great. Can I also go back to question number 2? You said it's very important, the meditation for your spiritual growth. Can you expand on that? Why is it so important to have meditation for your spiritual growth?
I find it important because it's part of my daily prayer, and at this stage of my life I can't do a lot of the kind of prayer that I was perhaps used to or that we had in community, but having a period of quiet mindfulness in the structure of my prayer that includes reading and reflection on the scriptures and perhaps another component of prayer, which at the moment is some poetry. The mindfulness is part of that overall bouquet.
Oh, that's beautifully
Thank
said.
you.
The flowers.
Okay, I'll just stop that here. So, and I can't actually just see the chat, but anyone put anything that stood out that Yanni said, anything that stood out to you? I'll just see whether I can turn that on. Here, you can hear, if anybody can see it, period of prayer, reading poetry. Anything that stood out? She very much talked about walking around and seeing people with sad, sad faces, very lonely, very lost. And I can tell you that she's absolutely right on. You know, people are very lost and they're not used to being on their own. Some are, and some, but the majority aren't, you know, and certainly the ones who are more used to it often settle much easier because they're much more in their comfortable, I suppose, in their skin in some ways, or whatever it is. I'm not sure, but it's and so here some comments are coming. In a hurried world, great thing. So it's and look, she was part of a saging group beforehand, you know, looking at the wisdom of elders. She was very, very aware of these issues, and also it makes us think about, you know, the importance to start now this practice of becoming, you know, when there's a lot of anxiety around. Sorry, did you wanted to say something there, Sally? I just
Yes.
yeah.
Just to share with you, Beate, that Elizabeth Eastwood, hello Elizabeth, thank you. She says, I'm thinking how vital it is to nurture confidence in one's self, inner resources, even as you face losses of ability, independence due to aging. And Anne Harrington, in a hurried world, it's hard to find a quiet space, but it's very important to do so. And Joseph will get back to your question at the end of today.
And Sally is gathering questions along the way, so I'm going to move along a little bit. I'm sorry about that because I don't want to miss out on some of these things. So thank you for that. So of course, mindfulness is a really popular catchword. It's a form of meditation, and it's used effectively in the secular space as well as in a cultural and religious space. But it's all about the benefits of well-being, certainly. And that's why I made a point of calling it mindfulness meditation. We're talking about contemplative way of being, because the umbrella is wide enough for religious and non-religious in a way. It's inclusive, and that's what I really love about it. And then people can find their own way of coming into that space, which I'll just talk about in a second. One of the things we do in the group is, this is one of the basics in mindfulness, is the acronym STOP. STOP stands for S, stop what you're doing. T, take a deep breath. And exhale, inhale slowly, completely, observe, and then P, proceed. And even if you just take one thing away from today, we're just going to do a little stop, and I'm going to take you through. We'll take 10 seconds. And can I say, for the residents, that's one of the first things we introduced in the group, and I say to them, before you get up out of your chair on your walker, just stop, and they follow this practice. Before you move from here to there, it's just really a way of gathering yourself before you transition from one thing to the other, and they find it very, very useful. So wherever you are, with your feet touching the ground and sitting up straight but relax at the same time, we're going to stop. So let the sound of the bell just wash over you as we just stop for a moment. So as we stop, taking a deep breath in and breathing out slowly and completely. Another deep breath in and out. And O stands for observe. So from your feet, from the bottom of your sole of your feet, just with your mind's eye, just scan through your body and observe. Just notice, observe any sensation without judgment, just noticing. Aha, might be feeling this, noticing that. Any feelings that might be arising maybe around your chest, your heart, or any thoughts that are floating around in your mind. Just notice and observe. And P is for proceed. And as we just let So just that was 7 seconds or something like that. Just write in the chat if you like to. Anything, any word that comes to your mind after having just stopped for those few seconds. Just any little word, good or bad. And can I say, this whole process of focusing and becoming mindful, whether it's knitting, whether it's fishing, whether it's walking. And for this lady, you know, she currently knits hats for children who need them and contributes to her longevity. And we've got one lady, she was part of the research. She's also from a religious background, religious order. She knits a cardigan, a jumper every day, every week, I should say. So anyone who needs one comes to her, and she's amazing. And as she knits, that's her way of being in the present moment. So we have many ways of doing this. So, so in terms of the significance of having universal elements in the group that invite spirituality beyond faith and religions in spiritual care, as we all know, but start with an inclusive understanding of spirituality and finding out what is meaningful for the older people. Emphasis that we are talking about a God or a high power of our own meaning and other meaning-making frameworks. And of course, we'll have different experiences of what that looks like. In where I work, they are very much from Anglo Catholic background majority. We have some also who are spiritual but not religious, and it's actually more the younger ones coming through in their 70s, early 80s. The older people tend to be more traditional from a Catholic background, and I didn't know whether they were going to be interested in meditation groups at all, because they like their rosary groups and things like that. But they said, look, they lived through the 60s and certainly were very familiar with meditation and feel very comfortable with it. But just to make sure that to be really clear, that really the mindfulness practice, the contemplative meditation, is found in all the key major religions, and it's nothing new. It's not necessarily a Buddhist thing. It's or a Christian or Islamic thing. It's this contemplative approach, being still. And often when I explain that to people, they feel reassured because they're not sure what's it all about. So of course, and when we practice in all the research, we know that the benefits of mindfulness in all those things, I won't go into all the detail of this slide, but it's no less true for older people. All the research is for children, younger people, and middle-aged people, but it doesn't go into the frail-aged people. When I did my research to get any literature on this, there's hardly anything written about, we're talking about 80 plus. It's usually sort of 60 up to 60, 65 years. And I think the needs are different when you're frail, and particularly at the end of life stage. So older people do need quiet times, which includes their solitude and meditation, as many elders become more selective about who they spend time with, and becoming less interested in superficial relationships and tending to show more interest in solitude, which can become significant future for older people's mental health. So we talk about that geritranscendence very much, which links to this. An interesting spiritual reminiscing also, of course, Elizabeth B. Kingley talks about that in her work in terms of meaning making at this stage of life. So just quickly, a little bit of an overview of the book, 4 parts. You can see once a bit about the benefits of the meditation for older people and a bit of the research. The second part is really about the practicalities of preparing for the meditation group, then the group program itself, and then also some extra resources. And I especially did it in this A4 size, so it's very easy to use. The handouts, I especially did them like in a 16 or 18 fonts, so you can photocopy them straight away. You don't have to enlarge them, because those things of not being able to see, not being able to hear, are one of those key issues that I had to deal with on a regular basis in the group, because or when people share, other people can't hear them and all those things. So all those things are addressed in the book, and these are the things that can make it very tricky. So, for example, this is about how to prepare yourself in terms of group facility participants, and so forth. And also when an older person dies in the group. And can I say that's been always very special in terms of the whole process in that the other participants of the group, we discuss, we talk about the person hasn't been attending, they're not feeling well. They might then encourage them to go and visit them in the room, to sit with them, maybe even to meditate with them. And a lovely story when Molly was dying, she got back from the doctor, 98-year-old lady. She was very jaundiced at the time. The doctor said, look, you probably only have a few more days left. And so as she arrived, she came to me and I said, well, look, we happen to have a group, meditation group. Do you want to come now just for one more time? And she said, yes. And it was a very, very moving group because she told the group what the doctor had said. And in the end, they all, it was all very spontaneous. They all went around her and put their hand on her and they gave her a blessing. It was very, very beautiful. And it became a space. It's more than just a meditation group. It's a space for them to care for one another. It's a real community of care. That's what it really does. So in the group itself, I'm just going to quickly walk you through the 6 sessions. And the idea is to start with the 6 sessions and, obviously modify and do it whatever you like with it, but then continue in your own way with adding different elements, like different poetry reading into the group, whatever is suitable for the group. So the first session is about really what is mindfulness and how to meditate. So, and I'm going to take you a little bit through that in a minute. And every chapter group has a group outline with details explaining, the resources, such as an example. Then the second second week is about the importance of breathing and practicing it well, and it's lovely. I get them to put their hands on their heart, on their chest, and to breathe carefully and slowly, and to become in touch with that. And it's very, very beautiful. They just love that. Then the third week is about staying connected, mindful observation in daily life. So actually, I get them to hold a stone and to connect to remember that they're holding millions of years of carbon that's been collected, and there's a history in their hands. So we talk about connecting, and they love that one. Week 4 is about connecting mind and body and being at home in yourself. This whole thing about the stop, for example, practicing being in the moment and calming yourself to come home to yourself. And Week 5 is about drawing from our Indigenous Australian tradition, the Dadidi, which is this deep inner listening, which I'll talk you through in a minute. And 6 is about embracing gratitude with living with a grateful heart. So the focus is really why do we need to actually practice gratitude actively? And it's got a little bit of positive psychology in it to explain that. And it also talks about that gratitude is the other hand of grief. Grief and gratitude go hand in hand, that we know from so many of the wisdom teaching. This is Dulcie, the 95-year-old meditating. A beautiful woman she was. It was such a joy. I learned so much from these elders. So what I'm going to do now is quickly take you. I'm going to give you a little taste of the first session. So we would have done a mindful eating exercise, one of those classic 101 activities in mindfulness, which they love, just to becoming aware of all the sensations. And then I take them through this story of the elephant who could not keep her trunk still, which is really a way to pave the way to explain why we need something to help us to stay focused while we meditate. So I'm going to, and the story is in the book. So I'm going to just read you this story. And before I read take you through the story, what I usually do is I'll either bring an elephant from home, or generally most people have, or not most, but many people have a little statue of an elephant in the room, and then I'll go around and I show them the elephant, and yes, they will remember the elephant in the zoo when they were growing up, and there will be little stories, and then I'll tell them the story of the elephant. So The story comes from India and the author is unknown. It's a lovely story that helps us understand the purpose of using a mantra, a prayer word, to keep the mind focused while we meditate. Every day, a young elephant moved through a little village to get to the other side where her family resided. And every day, a great drama unfolded. As she walked, this elephant would throw her trunk, and I, really acted out the trunk from side to side, causing havoc. As she went, the trunk would throw down the neatly stacked bricks on one side, or rip down the washing clothes from the other washing lines. Things were flying everywhere as she went. The villagers dreaded the elephant coming through each day and causing such damage. They needed a plan. So one day, as soon as the elephant arrived at the village, they put a stick in her trunk. So I've just got this little thing here. I sort of show them a stick. She put it in the trunk at the end of the trunk, and grab this stick. And to hold her, and they told her that the stick had to be carried to the other side of the village. Eager to please, the elephant held onto the stick with focus and attention. She did not want to drop it. She had been trained to carry things, and she knew that there would be a nice reward, such as a banana, after she had completed the work. And this day, the elephant's trunk remained steady and centered, and nothing was bumped, ripped, or knocked over as she walked through the village. The little elephant had learned to keep her trunk in control. The villagers were amazed and delighted, and they all learned that the elephant had simply needed something to focus on to keep her trunk still and not wildly swinging from side to side. Peace and calm returned to the village. In meditation, we use a prayer word or a mantra to keep our mind focused. The prayer word is like the elephant's stick to keep her trunk calm and still. And so that sort of gives them a little bit of a story to explain the use of a mantra or prayer word. And then, I would talk about, it could be thank you, peace, calm. From the Christian meditation, the World Community of Christian Meditation, we use Maranatha, the Aramaic word. I explained that, but I say you choose a word that speaks to you. The only rule is really stay with that word always. So you can't sort of swap and change, because the idea is just to have it as an anchor, and there's that stability in it. So we have that little talk and make sure that it's inclusive for everyone. So can we bring our bodies and mind into the same place? And I suppose through the work of a breath and the mantra, certainly that's the idea in meditation, which is the universal factor. So, of course, the elephant trunk, had to stay calm and focused. So here's another few pictures. This lady, Gracie Saley, she died late last year. She had a stroke in America, actually, when she was doing a master's degree of science. She was a scientist. And she was aphasia, couldn't speak for about 38 years, and came every week to the group and always would write down her reflections for me. And in the research, she would write down her thoughts. Here I just want to read this part from Dot. She said, sorry, that's from Vivian, I should say. She said, in terms of the activity, she said, I didn't put much weight on time for sharing, but in the questionnaire, in the interview, but I realized that it's the little things that happen in the group. They're not just the little things happening, but they're actually a really important part. We learn a lot from you. So I would always bring them a little bit of information, this is coming up, or, a little bit about what's happening in the aged care home, and then it would weave it into the group. And something to get our attention and points us to something that was happening, and you point this out. And this, like a change in the season or something that's happening, I think that puts color and time that we have together. And so that became a very important part of the group. I just want to say here that in week 5, we have the Indigenous tradition on deep listening. And here I wanted to mention to you a little bit and show you this beautiful woman here, Miriam Rose Uma Bauman. She's from the Northern Territory, right up in the North End. And she actually became the Australian Senior of the Year in 2020. I think 2021. And she, unfortunately, we were right in the thick of COVID, so she didn't get much chance. She wanted to travel around Australia to talk about her work. But I'll show you a little bit of something. This is a video I play in this group, and the elders really relate to her because she's a senior herself. And a lot of the older people in my group, they love being in nature and love being bush. So this is a little bit of a summary of this is just about when she became a senior of the year.
Miriam was the first person in Nauru to study and get a full education. She then became a school teacher, and she believed that education was the way forward. A lot of the children had painful stories from home lives. And she believed that if every child had an opportunity to good education, to education that would allow them to know themselves more deeply, that would start to solve many of the problems that we could see in our communities today.
Dadidi, the deep inner spring inside us. We call on it, and it calls on us.
On the 26th of January in 1988, Miriam presented Dadidi to the Australian nation. She presented it as a gift to all Australians. Dadidi is such an important part of Aboriginal lives because living on this continent, we've learnt to listen since our earliest times. Listening to our elders, listening to our youth. I don't think Australia has heard fully the pain and the distress that Aboriginal people have suffered in this country. Non-Aboriginal people in this country also carried their own pain, their own trauma. And so if we slow down and open ourselves up, we can start to heal that pain under the anger, under the distress. The concept and the activity and the force of Dadidi is important to us all. Dadidi just does not happen out in the bush, it happens everywhere, anywhere. Story maps, on the beach, sitting, listening and talking to each other. You can take your spouse, your friends, spend a night listening to your children talk and tell stories. And as we do that across this country, healing starts to happen because every person wants to be heard, wants to be listened to, wants to know who they are. When I go to visit with Miriam, she's quiet in the way she sits. She has a beautiful energy, softness, but she can be incredibly strong. And she has a call, she's put out a call to us all. Let's listen at that deep level of who we are, what we have been, what we are now, and what we can become.
So I felt in my, when I was putting the program together, it was really important to include her wisdom and the sense of listening in the stillness of in the natural world, and this recognize this deep spring inside us. And she says we call on it and it calls on us, and it's something that she says that you call contemplation. And I'm just thinking I'm going to have to cut a few things out. And I think I will play this. It will just go for 1.5 minutes. It's this is the official Dadidi trail, and I'd like you, for all of you, as wherever you are, some of you coming to the end of the day, some of you at the beginning of the day, let those words of Dadidi just wash over you. And as you listened, as she takes us into her country in the Northern Territory.
To know me is to breathe with me. To breathe with me is to listen deeply. To listen deeply is to connect. Is the sound of deep calling to deep. Dadidi, the deep inner spring inside us. We call on it, and it calls on us. We are river people. We cannot hurry the river. We need to move with the current and understand its ways. We wait for the rain to fill our rivers and water our thirsty earth. We watch our bush foods and wait for them to open before we gather them. We wait for our young people as they grow. The time for rebirth is now. If our culture is alive and strong and respected, it will grow. It will not die, and our spirit will not die. I believe that the spirit of Dadidi that we have to offer will blossom and grow, not just within ourselves, but in our whole nation.
So I hope those lovely words of hers will bring you some calm and peace. And I was going to take you through a little period of silent meditation, but I'm going to invite you instead after this little session for you to do it in your own time. I want you to know that in the book, I provide a number of different variations of an opening and closing prayer. This is the one traditional one that comes from the World Community of Christian Meditation, and here is also one that's a little bit uses less religious words, around presence instead of Heavenly Father. So you can adjust it to the group and how it speaks to people. It has instructions on how to meditate, and the importance of staying and repeating, always coming back to your prayer word, the mantra, and as you go, it's like the anchor and like the stick of the elephant. But we're not going to do that. Instead, I wanted just to finish up, because I want to make sure we leave a bit of time for questions, the importance of practicing gratitude with a mindful hand massage. It's a really important part of the group, and as you could see from the research, that's something actually they ended up really loving really the most. And one of the quotes that I use, I use a lot of Brother David Steindl-Ruster's work, the Benedict monk. It's not happiness that makes gratefulness, but gratefulness that makes happiness. And it's gratitude is the other hand of grief, as I said earlier. It is the mature man and woman who welcomes both. To deny either reality is to slip into chronic depression, or to live in denial or with richness of life's difficult means. Together, they actually form a tension that makes tangible the exquisite richness of life in this moment. Life is hard and filled with suffering. and life is also a most precious gift, a reason for continual celebration and appreciation. To everything, the old prophet said, there is a season, and this is the time of Thanksgiving. Von Francis Weller, who does a lot of grief work. So this is lovely Grace. This is that she would write with her non-dominant hand. You know, I'm grateful for all the wonderful people. It would take a, you know, about 10 minutes to write that. So we would go around and she would be the last one and I would read out her words. It was always such a joy. This is Shirley said she's on the cover of the book, but she often talks about saying, I'm grateful for my life and living here. And it's amazing having even one person in the group say that they're grateful for being here right now in this home. It really changes the whole atmosphere of everybody else, because suddenly they think, oh, maybe it's not that bad after all, and maybe I can be actually content and quite happy here in my own way. And so you're creating it creates a culture of appreciation, which is really, really great. So finally, Ian, here's the group just more recently in terms of some questions and challenges. You know, some of the questions, you know, you might be thinking about what so far maybe has resonated with your own practice in spiritual care, and what do you see some of the challenges in facilitating a meditation group? Then there's lots of challenges. And just before we go in the question, I wanted to also say I'm very grateful, especially for the Sisters of Notre Dame of Montreal in Canada, who've really taken on a lot of interest. And we've started, you know, with other people. There've been many people who've been doing this familiarization with the program. And we started through Meaningful Aging this Facebook group that anyone is welcome to join. And I'll send Jane the link to it if anyone's interested. It's really, we've just started it literally 10 days ago. So the idea is to build up a little bit more support for each other in this work. And also Meaningful Aging is running free webinars and workshops, and these are other paid workshops on the book. So you're welcome to join that if you go on Meaningful Aging Australia. And finally, I'm very happy to send you through Jane or Sally a copy of the book as the PDF version of the book that I can. So you know, the idea is for it to really go out in the community and as any way to make it available for people if it helps you. So I was hoping there would be some questions, and we'd love to be able to engage with that. So how are we there, Sally? I haven't looked at the chat at all.
That's fine. Beata, thank you so very, very much. That was just beautiful. We did have one question which you actually answered, saying, could you say more about the group prayer? And so you did talk about there is a prayer to bring people together. It can either be a more Christian-based prayer, or it can be more a general prayer. So you can choose depending on your group. So it's very, very inclusive. And Joseph asked, is there a particular method used to measure spiritual growth?
Very good question. Look, I have to say, not really. It was more the questions I had in the questionnaire, and I asked generally, would meditation help them in their spiritual growth? I didn't sort of define exactly what it is and what that, and before and after, I asked them that before the 6-week program and after. Now, look, I don't know how really, you know, scientific that is, probably not. It was more a qualitative, really, research more than anything what my project was. But maybe what other people, you know, or other people have that on that, and I'd love to, if you know more about it, but that's in the past now. I've finished my study. I don't know if anyone else wants to say something, or whether Sally or Jane or anyone else like to comment.
It's a good question. We'll ponder it a little bit.
Yeah, it is a very good question. There's a couple, I see from Robin, a question just popped up there. I'm wondering how many elder people in the UK would be interested even in the concept meditation. I think it's great, but you know, it's a very good question, Robin. I was very hesitant to start the meditation group. I just had completed a training in how to run a meditation group. I never, ever thought in my life I would be running a meditation group in aged care. And then this lady approached me and she said, why don't you start one in the aged care home? And I thought, oh no, I don't think so. And they had done something a little bit similar in another. It was more like a independent living place. And they certainly was physically in a much better, healthier space. That people were still living independently. And they loved it. And they were really telling me this is a great group. And I thought, well, look, just try it. And I didn't think anyone would come when I advertised it, but people came and they loved it. So I realized it was my prejudice and my limitation and my probably fear that it won't go well. Can I really encourage all of you, just have a go at it and see where it goes and let it unfold. As I said, I was a bit reluctant, but they actually really loved it. And I think the benefits, maybe in terms of going back to the other question, one lady, and this is, I suppose, in terms of qualitative comments from one lady, she was only in her late 70s, came to the group. She was very quiet, hardly ever spoke. I knew she had a lot of worries. Her grandson was in jail and there were all sorts of things happening. And she told me a little bit about that. But in the group, she never really said much. And then one day we were sharing a bit when we were going around. She said, oh, I love the meditation group because now at night when I lie there and I'm worried, I just say my mantra and it helps me to fall asleep and I feel much calmer. And I'm so grateful that I've learned this meditation. She was quite a religious person, very private. And you know what? A week later, she died very unexpectedly. She got pneumonia, very quickly sick and died. And I remember thinking, she had a lot of worries on her, and she had this meditation process, this contemplative prayer process, helped her to calm herself. So it had that physical element, but a spiritual element as well. So I can simply say that as an example, which really touched me. Joseph, you had a question. Did you wanted to say something? Had your hand up? You just have to unmute yourself. Sorry, you're still on.
I'm free. I'm on. Can you hear me?
Yep, that's right.
Well done. I suppose my question has to do with a point you had regarding Richard Rohr on contemplation. And the reason I'm wanting to ask this with the question I had before about how do you measure spiritual maturity is that my sense of Richard Rohr talks about contemplation being one way in which you break down dualistic thinking. And dualistic thinking is where the ego overrides the spirit. We become our own worst enemy. So I suppose my understanding of Rohr and spirituality and contemplation is that I can kind of contemplate, but I don't grow. I just do the same thing round and round and round. Whereas real development might mean that I have a whole lot of doubts about where I am, which God brings into light, and that light makes me change or deal with my end of life issues. So I suppose that's my response. I don't know if anyone else or yourself would like to comment on that.
Yeah, thanks, Joseph. Look, I hear what you're saying in terms of, that dualistic thing and that thinking. And I guess that in terms of mindfulness and contemplative prayer, it's about the non-judgment. It's about accepting things as they are, good, bad, or ugly, and just letting them be without a reaction. And I guess even and holding on, like the stick or the elephant, holding on to the mantra. And I guess, when you think about the desert fathers and mothers from, hundreds of years ago, that sense of just the simplicity of stripping back in your prayer. And a lot of older people tell me they're too tired to pray. They haven't got the energy, but to repeat a word and know that gives them the calm and the stillness helps them actually, or focusing on the breath and knowing that God is in that. That God is, and that there's a quieting in that, I suppose, is that. And I guess the idea, to be honest, in the group, we never really tease it out in a theological basis. We just practice it in our group, and they're just very grateful to turn up to a space where we have some silence, where we have a little bit of reflection, where we have gratitude. It's very simple. It's not a deep discussion often, and if they wanted to, what they're welcome to. And I'm not saying that beyond that.
Yeah,
It's more that that's the key thing. We're 9 o'clock. Yeah, sorry.
Now, one quick last question,
Yes.
which I've just noticed. I've tried this. One person said, how is this different to Christian Science? I didn't know how to answer. Do you have a 10-second response to that?
Christian Science, look, I don't know that much about Christian Science, but it's nothing to do with Christian Science. This is a practice of contemplation, the contemplative prayer. That's really what it is. And mindfulness. So don't get worried about mindfulness or it's about becoming still. It's about, and I'll give you a very good answer. Grace, the lady who couldn't have the stroke, she was a very religious lady. She said, oh, why do we have to be still? I thought prayer is talking to God. Why would we want to do this? And I remember she wrote that down, that question. And I thought, oh, that's a good question. I said, well, when we pray, we are talking to God and telling God what, a higher power, what's happening or what we're thinking. But if we want to listen to God, we actually have to learn to quiet ourselves. We can't listen if we're busy talking. So meditation and contemplative prayer helps us to learn to listen deep within to the center of our being. And that's really where that's the practice, the purpose. And she got that. And she said right, yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you, Beate. I think those are good words to end on. And we didn't get to quite all the questions, so maybe we'll send them to you and see if you want to type out an answer for some that we could send out when we send out the chat and the link to the webinar recording and the slides and the PDF of your book and a link to the Facebook group and a link to Meaningful Aging Australia and your email address. Those are all the things that I've written down that people would like. So we'll make sure that all that comes out in an email, probably in about a week's time or so by the time we get everything put together. But thank you so much, Beate, for giving so freely of your time and your work today. A reminder to everyone that you can register for future webinars at grable.ca/SA. And the next one's coming up on March the 14th. Our colleague here in Ontario, Ingrid Leptison, is going to be with us presenting a workshop called Oh, What a Beautiful Morning, Songs, Prayer, Reflection, Story to Celebrate Hope and Faith. Ingrid is a spiritual care provider in a long-term care home and works especially with people living with dementia, finding ways to express and enjoy their spirituality. So join us for that. It's going to be a great webinar as well. So go well, everyone, and be blessed. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Thank you.